Hey, what's going on? This is Aaron Price, the CEO of Tech United New Jersey. Very excited about this show today. We're talking about 4 ways that female founders can conquer the corporate world. Joining me today is Megan Meany. She's the CEO of Mega Media. Megan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, psyched to be here.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So first, for those who may not have seen you on your television show appearances, can you share with people a little bit about who you are and your background?
Sure. So the default in corporate communications, B2B, tends to be that people are dry and boring. So what I do is help elevate content and presentation skills from what I call meh to mega, mega being more engaging, more consumable. And like you said, my background has been in television, 20 years as a broadcast journalist, working for NBC, CBS, CNN, and still currently contributing to morning TV. And then I had a second career in corporate communications for SAP and First Data, supporting them with video content and production. And now with Mega Media, I support companies with storytelling, speaker coaching, master classes, and really improving their communication skills.
So we have 4 ways in particular. I know you speak to audiences of all backgrounds and genders, but we're talking today a little bit specifically about how females can conquer communication.
Right.
And so what's the first way?
Honestly, so many women, sadly, still lack confidence. It's in short supply, and there are lots of reasons for that. It's everything from nature to nurture to societal messaging. It's also self-inflicted. So the first thing women need to do to win in corporate is to prepare to feel good, to have a positive mindset. And that means doing a system check. What is your belief system? What thoughts are running through your head before you go into a meeting or you're ready to pitch or sell? If there's a negative thought loop, you need to identify it and reframe it in a more helpful, empowering way. And that doesn't happen overnight. But the good news is science says with intention and repetition, we can build more confidence. But how you feel going in is going to be 80% of how well you do when you communicate and when you lead.
So that's easier said than done, I believe, right? As you pointed out, that takes a while. If someone is genuinely lacking confidence, even if he or she is working on building that confidence before they're about to go into a pitch, do you have any specific tips on things that they can tell themselves to boost that confidence level?
Yes. First of all, I wouldn't do it just before you go into the pitch. I would start it as soon as you know you have a pitch coming up, because repetition is what our mind loves. It's how we change the neural pathways. So perhaps you're used to saying to yourself, I'm not a natural public speaker. So we want to do a little thought work hack and reframe that. And the new thought would be, I connect easily with people, or I'm going to rock the talk. And you're going to repeat that daily as much as possible over the days leading up to the event. Now, like I said, doesn't necessarily happen overnight, but the more you plan to feel good and the more you send yourself positive messages over time, if you continue to do that with every crucial communication moment, you will start to become what you believe.
Have you always been a confident public speaker?
No, I've had mindset coaching. And that's another point I want to make to the women here. For those of you who truly are suffering and feel uncomfortable speaking publicly, there are great mindset coaches. Tracy Litt of the Lit Factor is the one that I worked with. Cindy Warren of Blue Tree Coaching, also great. So I learned this. And just before we got on today and in the days leading up, I have Post-it notes. I have a vision board. I put some empowering thoughts up there and I do read them. I wake up in the morning, I see them, and it works.
Would you describe yourself as a confident person?
Yes.
Would you have you always felt that way?
No. Point being, with the help of Tracy Litt and those mindset exercises and practicing this, I learned to become more confident.
Yeah. Are there so what are some of the other steps involved in driving some of this, not just confidence, but other ways that women can have a strong presence in a pitch or in a corporate environment?
Well, another common approach to speaking in corporate or in a business environment is to present information. And a more effective way would be to tell a story, because stories are more memorable than information, than reciting facts and figures. And in this cluttered information age, stories cut through, right? They warm people's hearts. We get them to trust us. It's all about connecting with our audience. So stories are more memorable. And stories also lend themselves to a more natural delivery because you're inspired when you tell a story. Think about going to a dinner party. Someone tells a story at the table. They know right where to start. They know what juicy details to include, where to end. Their voice quality rises and falls. Just because it's business doesn't mean it has to be boring. You can still be business smart and on message, but stories are the way to go.
So do you have a recommended approach? I fully agree with you on storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think crafting a story around a business pitch is a challenging exercise.
Right.
Do you have any recommendations on things that people can do to create a story out of, here's my really interesting business idea?
I do. So first of all, at the very basic level, stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. A great structure for your business story would be that you start the beginning with the problem. Whenever you communicate, it's about connection. So in order to connect with your audience, you need to relate to them. So you want to start your story with what problem they're dealing with. The middle of your story would be the solutions you're bringing to the table, your service, your business, your company, and how you plan to help them. And then you end the story with what you want them to do after you tell your story or give your pitch. What is the action item? That is a useful structure for a story. The other thing about a story is you got to grab them from the top, right? This is the beginning of the journey with your audience. So make them feel something, evoke some emotion in them.
Yeah. Are there any storytellers, influencers, speakers that you would recommend people pay attention to who you think do a great job of this?
You know what? This is funny. Cory Booker. I think Cory Booker is amazing. He has all the essential ingredients of storytelling. He is human. He's, he teaches us something. He's warm. He's smart. The last thing I saw him do on the air, I just was glued to him. And I thought, this guy has everything. And he's Jersey, right?
He is Jersey. I appreciate, I didn't prep you for that question. So I do.
It's a true answer.
A Jersey reference is appreciated.
Yes.
I would argue, using him as an example, I think he goes on too long. I think he loses people's attention. So whether or not he does that, to that point, I think the currency we're talking about in general is attention, right? How do people make sure they keep people hooked and paying attention the entire, if it's a 5-minute thing, I think it's just as challenging as the 15 or 30-minute presentation. Any tips on how to keep people engaged?
Yes. You bring up a great point, which is time and attention span. So one of my communication strategies that I coach a lot of people on is being an essentialist. So you've just set up the problem. People are long-winded. They lose their audience. If essentialism is the disciplined pursuit of less. Human attention span is 8 seconds, less than a goldfish. So if you're long-winded, your audience is long gone. So the sooner you start getting essential, what is the essential information we need to include here? 2 to 3 key messages or concepts is really all you need. People can't retain more than that anyway. The more focused, the more powerful. Do you know who Marie Kondo is?
I do.
Okay. So she's a Japanese organizing expert, right? So she clears clutter from drawers and closets and attics. So I suggest you Marie Kondo your content. Weed out some words and leave what she says is only what's inspiring, right? Yeah. So practicing essentialism, a way to start doing that right away today is with your emails. Go look at your sent box and see what your emails look like. Are they too long? How many times have we skimmed people's emails, right? Not had time. Everyone wants time back.
Yep.
So it's really important, yes, to be an essentialist. That is the bedrock of all of this. You got to start there. You got to know that short is the way to go. Just look what's trending, right? Snapchat, Twitter, Take your cues from outside the walls of corporate. What's
I
trending?
think people forget that human beings are now literally like one swipe away from the next more entertaining thing.
Right.
So, holding that attention is critical.
Right.
What about in a digital world? Normally I do these from a studio. We have a much better setup. Today it didn't work out that way. You have this beautiful background with nice lines and good colors. Obviously, we talked offline about being sort of self-aware in general about a digital presence. What do you recommend, women or for anyone, but any tips in for those presenting digitally?
Yes. First of all, let me address one thing that I commonly hear from the women that I coach, which is that they're worried about how they look and sound on camera. So one tip for that: listen, people will judge us. There's nothing we can do about that. What I'd like you to do, though, is focus on your purpose, your why. Why are you here in front of the camera? Why am I here today? What's my message? What am I passionate about sharing? What is the impact I want to have on the world? Root yourself in that when you get in front of the camera, and try to take the focus off of your physical appearance. Now, that said, executive presence is important. This is a visual medium. So you want to show up as your best self, but you have to decide what is your best self. There's no rules there. I can tell you solid color looks good on camera, but if you feel best in a black suit, wear your black suit, put on a little mascara. That's up to you if that's your best self. And like you pointed out, environment is actually also important. You can be an essentialist with your background, weed out the clutter. We don't want to see the printer. And your background can cue a little bit about your personality to your audience. It actually can give them energy. When you and I got on together, you were like, hey, great background. I have Zoom fatigued and coached 20 people in a day. And I can tell you, when one suddenly shows up with a great background, it does give me, the audience and the person on the other side of the camera, some energy. So, get a professional webcam. It's an instant airbrushing situation. Get a ring light and, put some art, put a pop of color back there. It matters. This is your personal brand now. It's your business's brand and it's your brand.
I'm feeling embarrassed now because we have this very old IKEA dresser. Although this picture my wife drew, you can't see, is often in frame. It's interesting. But I fully agree with you. That these things are important. Is that plant behind you normally elevated, or is that just a nice, thoughtful touch?
This is a real plant. This is my fig tree. She's lived with me a long time. And that one back there, that one?
Yeah.
That's also real.
Not a studio edition.
Always there.
You have this fantastic habit of smiling while you speak. Yeah. And I am curious if that's something you've deliberately done. Is that how you've always been? I notice when I watch my own interviews like this back, I get serious, and if you were to mute it, I think it would look like I was annoyed, but I'm just trying to really pay attention. Yeah. And I've noticed people who kind of smile as they speak. I think it's a very engaging thing to do. Is that a deliberate activity on your part?
It is, but I'm also happy and glad to be here. So, but I will say that smiling, and you just said it, is connective. And so if we're talking about leadership, right? Leadership is about influence. You can't influence people if you don't connect with them. I'll give you an example. When I worked at First Data, I took Frank Bisignano, the CEO, to CNBC to do an interview with Liz Claman, Closing Bell, about earnings. Frank is a serious guy, can be a little gruff. We love him. I took him in for the interview. He had, maybe 3 minutes with Liz, but the second to last question, he used her name and he smiled. And when I got back to the office, that's what everyone talked about. They were like, oh, Frank had a great rapport with Liz. People like to see their leaders human, right? Looking human, and that's connected. Now, that said, you don't want to be cheesy and over smile and force a smile, but you do want to smile at some point on camera or during a crucial presentation. Yes.
That's good. That's good feedback. Thank you for that, Megan. What are the other two? I believe we hit two and I took us off course. So what are the other two key skills?
There's so many. So we covered storytelling. We covered being an essentialist. We talked about confidence. We talked about being on camera. Those are really four of the big ones, but there are many subheadings under those. For instance, we talked about how to look and show up on camera. Energy, we didn't talk about that. Super important when you communicate digitally. This is a cold medium, right? So in order to reach through the screen and connect with your audience on the other side, you need to bring it bigger than you would if you were in person. So
can you talk a little bit more about that point? Because I've, having done some television work, very, very little, but some, I hear people saying, turn it up to 11 because it'll get sort of whittled down to a 6 or a 7 in the process.
Right.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's just something the camera does. It does suck our energy. So you have many ways that you can get your energy up. Right before I got on with you, I was jamming out to Lizzo. I listen to music. It gives you a micro release of testosterone. Music does. So that's where energy comes from. So for me, I like to listen to music backstage or music right before I do something digitally. That's one option for you. Obviously, exercise, getting your blood going is a great way to get your energy up. We talked about environment. You can get energy from your environment. If you feel good when you sit down here, you have a powerful podium from home, you're going to feel energetic. These are all great sources for getting your energy up.
I think these are all fantastic tips. I have 2 young daughters. Would you, what advice would you give parents of young girls in particular about ways to drive some of these confident habits or other things you think make for confident, powerful professionals?
Well, the mere fact that you're asking me how to help your daughters tells me that they're already going to be helped because their nurture environment is a positive one and one that's proactively thinking about their confidence. So that's a smart move, number one. I think just having an open dialogue with them and always stepping in when they seem to be going down a lack of self-belief route. My son the other day said to me, going into his first basketball game on this, exciting team that he got recruited to, he was acting kind of funny on the way in. And he finally said to me, I'm nervous. I'm not going to do well. And I was like, whoa, no way, let's work on this mindset. So the earlier, the better with training them that their mind sends them messages that aren't true. So, I didn't learn that until I was much older. So if you, start young with the thought work hacks, I think is a great thing. And, their mother is, I'm sure, a wonderful example of a confident woman. So any chance mom gets to bring them to work or to share any obstacles she's overcome, mentally, but we all have our moments, right?
Yeah. Is there what advice would you give to men in the workplace about things they may not realize that they're doing that impact how women feel in an environment?
There are statistics that say men take up something like 75% of the conversation at work. There are also studies that say they interrupt more. When I coach women, they often ask me how to handle that. And so I would just say, raise your consciousness about those 2 things. That would be helpful. As far as what women can do to just honestly, some of it is just raising your consciousness about staying in the game. So if you do get interrupted, it's your job to get back in. And sometimes just having a stock remark ready to go when you are interrupted, it sort of gives you permission to get back in if you plan ahead on that one. And it can be as simple as the point I was trying to finish was, or the point I wanted to continue making. It's something simple, but it's on you. You got to get back in. And it doesn't mean, though, that women need to communicate more like men or men. We both bring great communication qualities to the table in a place of business. But if we can understand that men tend to come into the room looking to dominate the conversation, women are pleasers and they self-censor and they come in allowing everyone to be heard, or their goal is that everyone should be heard. If we can take a little of them and a little of us and vice versa, we'll have a better conversation.
All right. Well, I think that's excellent advice. I want to thank you for joining us today. If people would like to learn more, go to megamedia.co.
Yes.
schedule a free 30-minute discovery call, can book you for trainings on for corporate speaking, for startup pitches, etc. I believe very, very strongly in this topic. I think there's the business idea and there's the communication skill, and you can have an incredible idea, but if you are unable to effectively communicate it, I think you're dead in the water. So
Right.
this is something that's near and dear to our mission. So thanks so much for joining us, Megan. I really appreciate it. We often end with like a high five. So high five the camera with me in the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom.
Boom.
Have a great holiday, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.